All the physicians told my mom, you should take him home, let him pass peacefully. He's not going to see his 15th or 16th birthday. And here I am, just turned 48 a week ago, and happy to be smiling and have the wrinkles and all the number of knee replacements I've gone through. I mean, to this point, I've had 44 surgeries and 36 knee replacements and revisions.
You hear that? How does that bring you to what you do today? Tell us a little bit about what you do today, your life's mission.
So it really became my purpose of how am I going to give people a higher quality of life in what I call their new normal. And that's not just cancer. That could be an injury, you could be congenital disability or otherwise. I really found myself in this as this odd voice and beacon of advancing opportunity for people impacted by disabilities.
And as I've shared with you, my brother, little Bernie Jr., was diagnosed with ALS and ended up passing away in 2020. But for 8 years, I watched him slowly become more and more disabled. And it became a lot more real, where there wasn't the accessibility.
He missed out. We are accomplishing the country's first universal park right now.
Which is amazing. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that means?
And we're very proud of ourselves that we've done that for people with disabilities. But in our case, that playground sits in an 18-acre park. It starts with saying, we need the first wheelchair slide. It's coming to a park near you. The first universal field, the first therapy pocket. These are all coming to a park near you. So what we mean by that is
I've been excited about having you on since I first met you, and really excited about today and where this conversation might go. So I just want to thank you for coming and
it's my pleasure
joining us to do this. Let's just start with a little bit about your life and how you got here.
How long do we have?
As long as you want.
My life is largely defined in an experience that came just 3 days before my 13th birthday. So in my very formative years, I was diagnosed with childhood bone cancer, originally in my right leg. After 7 months of remission, I was re-diagnosed in my left leg as a freshman in high school. And one of the things I'll never forget about that moment was in the first month, we had to give a speech and write an essay about what we love, what we hate, or what we fear.
Mm.
I chose to write about what I loved, which was life and survivorship. What I feared was being re-diagnosed ever.
Mm.
And that came within a week of writing that essay and giving that speech. September 28th, 1992, I was re-diagnosed when all the physicians told my mom, you should take him home, let him pass peacefully. He's not going to see his 15th or 16th birthday. And here I am, just turned 48 a week ago, and happy to be smiling and have the wrinkles and limping around in life and still walking on my own 2 feet. Being patient one of one ultimately has defined my character, my passions, my goals, my entire life.
Amen. We'll talk about that a little bit. Like how did all that form into where you are today?
My mom tells an interesting story when we talk about this. She goes, of all my kids, you were the last one that I would have thought could deal with this the way you did.
Mm.
And the way I've explained it is truly ignorance is bliss.
Yeah, amen to that.
It is bliss.
I call it perfectly naive.
Yeah. When I was first diagnosed, I first see a orthopedic, not even an orthopedic surgeon. And he comes into the room after the x-ray and he's just ghost white. He looks at it, my mom, and looks at me. He goes, well, could be a tumor, could be infection, could be benign, could be malignant. I'm 12. I don't know what he's talking about. I literally look at him as tears start welling up in my mom's eye, and I go, what the hell's a tumor?
Mm-hmm.
I had no idea what he was talking about. So then you go to Children's Hospital, and you have your biopsy, and they want to start chemotherapy and all that stuff, and they're telling you the protocol and what's going to happen. And I was like, oh, okay. So I've got a year of treatment and a surgery, and then I'm fine. That was the ignorance, right? That I thought I wouldn't need more chemo. I wasn't hearing you could die, you could lose your leg. All of that locked inside of my head, but didn't resonate until I was done. Mm-hmm. So this interesting moment of call it God, call it love, call it the universe protecting you to get you through was just automatic. I was just enveloped in that ignorance, if you will. And then in the 7 months I was in remission, I saw it all. I saw where the doctors told you could lose your leg, or the chemo may not work, or you could lose your life. I relived it all in my head. So it wasn't in one ear and out the other. It was just in the memory, stuck for the moment. And that's where fear settled in. That's where it was, gosh, I don't ever want to be sick again. I don't ever want to go through this. So going into my next biopsy was where my oncologist and my surgeon looked at my mom and me, and they were like, there's no way. You're fine. And before I was even awake, they already knew. And my mom will tell the story of my surgeon came out into the waiting room and mask still on and wouldn't really remove it. And just, she could see it the minute that he came through those doors. And she said, just don't. She's like, I was screaming and running up and down the hall and didn't want to hear it. I spent the next 3 days telling everybody, I'm fine. I'm good. Everybody, I'm good. This is good. We're going to be fine. Everyone knew I wasn't, including my freshman girlfriend at the time. Everyone knew I was sick again. And that was for 3 days because they, again, told my mom the cancer's aggressive, which it means the protocol and chemotherapy for the treatment the first time was equally aggressive. And if this survived that, he's not going to survive any other treatment. And then she said, you go find something. My son's going to be fine. We're going to treat him. And what they found, something out of Texas Children's, and then made the statement to her, this will kill him. This treatment will kill him before the cancer kills him. Don't do it. And so for those 3 days while they were seeking, I was telling everybody I was fine, but everybody around me knew I was not. So her experience became my experience 3 days later when I watched my oncologist and my surgeon walk through the hospital door, right, my room, and I could see it on their face, and I kind of did the same thing my mom did. I didn't scream, but I looked at them and I said, just leave, just go, and just started to process it on my own.
Yeah. And so how does that bring you to what you do today? Tell us a little bit about what you do today, your life's mission.
What if I told you your promotional products could do way more than just promote your business? This is the Marine Layer Gym Bag. Love the vintage stripe, the retro shape. It's durable, cotton canvas, so you can just wipe that clean. It even has a pouch for your dirties. And look here, it says, oh hey, there's several decoration techniques that can be used on this bag. But beyond the bottom line, each item you purchase through BUKU Branded has a way bigger impact. If you want to connect with us, www.bukubranded.com.
You can imagine, right? Those are very formative years. 13 to 15 years old are very formative years, not to mention that I hit puberty in like 4th grade going into 5th grade, right? So I was already more mature. I was the baby of the family, which is probably why my mom didn't think I could handle what was coming at me, because I behaved like the baby of the family. How
many brothers and sisters?
I have a brother and a sister, both older, obviously. So my sister is 5 years older and my brother is 3 years older. So that entire experience in those transformative years of 13 to 15 years old, watching other kids around me pass away, not survive, watching years of what the doctors expected to happen. So usually what happens is osteosarcoma will go joint to joint to joint before it finally takes you over. That's what they expected to happen, from Children's in Milwaukee to Sloan Kettering, New York. Clearly that did not happen. So for me, it was, what am I going to do to honor my purpose? What am I going to do to give back? I went to a camp called Camp One Step for kids with cancer for almost 2 decades. And I watched our primary issue was not childhood cancer. So many of us had some kind of disability. So it really became my purpose of, how am I going to give people a higher quality of life in what I call their new normal? And that's not just cancer. That could be an injury. You could be, again, a congenital disability or otherwise. I really found myself in this as this odd voice and beacon of advancing opportunity for people impacted by disabilities. And that's been it. That's been my entire life ever since. It took me until I was 30 to realize, oh, you're the guy to deliver this. Yeah. And I think one of my favorite stories is a former board member who had a son with cerebral palsy, who was a daily wheelchair user. She said to me, she was, the reason you're the person to deliver this message and this need is because you walk the fence of disability. The able-bodied public doesn't know that you have a disability, but those of us with disabilities, especially in the adaptive sports world, know you belong here with us, and we want you here with us. Yeah. And there's a running joke, right, for people with disabilities of you get spoken to louder if you're a wheelchair user. And it's like, hey, man, my ears work fine, brain's good, just legs aren't working, right? Yeah. You're either spoken to in some kind of louder voice, or like you're a kindergartner or otherwise. So you immediately have this label of incompetence on you once you roll through the door. Or I've got a lot of friends who are wheelchair users who will not go out on Veterans Day because all they get is the thank you for your service. And it's like,
Yeah.
I didn't serve, but okay.
Right.
You know, you just don't know how to navigate it, so they just don't.
Right. And so how does that manifest in what you're doing today, the organization you started, and kind of the mission of that?
Yeah, I think what separates, so the organization that I started is called the Ability Center. And what separates us is what I've looked at over the years as kind of a problem solver. I like to see myself as a problem solver is, while some of it is great and some of it works and some of it is fun, what it is not is everyday inclusion. And it's not especially usually everyday inclusion where everybody is. And so how do we bridge that gap to bring opportunities for people impacted by disabilities, which is such an important thing to say. When we say impacted, it means everyone around them, not just the individual.
Yep.
People with disabilities come surrounded with able-bodied friends and family members and colleagues and peers, et cetera. But it's usually a model of we drop off Timmy, Tommy, Sarah, or Sue somewhere, and we come and pick them up later when they're done.
Yep.
And what we're saying is, no, you come and play with Timmy, Tommy, Sarah, and Sue. They want to be a part of your life. You want to be a part of their life. You know, when we do adaptive sports in wheelchairs, we say it's just a different pair of shoes. These are your Jordans for today. This is not disabled basketball. This is wheelchair basketball. This is not disabled sport. This is adaptive sport. It's just a different way to play the same game you already know or you already love. And so we can include them in that space. But I can't run up and down a court. I can't jump. I cannot be included in stand-up sports. But I can include that person with a disability in that space.
Yeah.
And then so finally, it's really at the end of the day, our goal is about transforming communities to be universally inclusive in the space of recreation and play. And so we're starting that in the Milwaukee area, but we absolutely intend to scale those across the country.
Yeah. Awesome. To get to know each other a little bit, I've shared with you that, you know, probably 15 years ago, I would have been in that category of people that thought about disabilities in a very different way, you know, when you're not directly impacted by it.
Mm-hmm.
And then as I've shared with you, my brother, little Bernie Jr., was diagnosed with ALS and ended up passing away in 2020. But for 8 years, I watched him slowly become more and more disabled.
Mm-hmm.
And I became a big part of, along with an army of people, of caring for him. And it became a lot more real. And whether it's going places where there wasn't the accessibility,
He missed out. You guys missed out.
yeah, well,
Your whole family, friends.
well, it just becomes, you just become a lot more a part of it, and you
Yeah.
start to understand their struggle, your struggle, and your struggle together.
Yeah.
And so I really commend what you do.
Thank you.
Um,
You know, that's the hard thing, is that you can lighten that struggle. And that's my goal. The goal in that new normal that you and your brother and your family and his family experienced, that load can be lightened through better design.
correct.
You know, he doesn't have to be excluded. He could have still gone out.
Yeah.
Why don't we build ramps everywhere
Yeah.
instead of steps?
Yeah. No,
Why do we see an elevator as an added addition that is unnecessary, when what we talk about and what you guys experience and what I've experienced, what we'll all experience, is that we're all just temporarily able-bodied. We all belong to one demographic, and that's tabs. So be it that we call it, be it an accident, the aging process, or disease in my case, you are not going to escape the need for that greater access. So you might be able to go up the steps to your favorite restaurant today, but if there isn't an elevator there when you're 80, you're probably not getting in that restaurant. You still want to be there. You still want to eat there. That's still your place. You know, that might be your Cheers. Will you always be able to get into your Cheers? That's our point. You should be able to. People are disabled by design.
Yep.
They become invisible by design, not because of their disability. It's the environments more than anything that disable us. Now, certainly over time, your brother became more profoundly disabled. Yeah. And so we get into that language of disability, but he didn't have to be excluded.
Yeah.
And that's what's important.
Yeah, and I want to highlight that because I think that's one of the things, the biggest thing that hit me, which is like, aha, which is, you're right. Like tabs, we're all
Temporarily able-bodied.
temporarily able-bodied, and it's so true.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's part and parcel of just our culture and our country, and we spend so much time on the beginning of life, and we don't focus as much attention on how the end of life or leading up to the end of life should be.
All of those spaces are in survival kind of mode.
Yes.
Like you're just supposed to survive at that point.
Yeah.
Forget thriving. And that even happened to me as a child. I mean, imagine you're discharged from the hospital at 15 years old and everyone's just proud that you survived. Yeah. And they're really proud of themselves for saving you.
Yes.
And I'm not saying they shouldn't be. That's great. But now that you did that, how do I thrive?
Yes, amen.
How do I be the best I can be in my new normal? Because volleyball was my life. I was going to be a pro beach volleyball player when I was 12, full stop. I had no other vision, no other plan, no other anything. And I came out of that experience and volleyball was no longer for me. And I couldn't find where I belonged.
Yep.
We take a child like that and we say, you can be the water boy. You can be the water girl. You can be the team manager. And that's where we put them. And we applaud ourselves and pat ourselves in the back because we quote unquote included them.
Yeah.
But there's other pathways forward to allow them to thrive, not just be on the bench.
Yeah, and
people got to get into life, and we can make that possible with access, whether that's equipment or whether that's design. People can access these spaces still if you give them the opportunity. They'll surprise you every time.
And I love that perspective because we all at some level are just surviving. But, you know, where I find where life really becomes real is when we turn that mentality into how do we thrive. Mm-hmm. And so I just want to commend you for, you know, your decision to turn what was very difficult, some suffering and some pain, and you could have gone and hit in a hole, or you could have chosen to become a leader. Yeah. And this is really what this Beyond the Bottom Line podcast is about, highlighting folks who, because we all have different bottom lines. Everybody has a bottom line, but making sure that purpose is a key part of that. And how does that play into our bottom line on a daily basis? So it's one of the reasons I'm just really excited to have you here, is because you are living evidence of all that and a great example to many of us, not just disabled body people, but you've already said it. We're all going to be disabled at some level. Yep. And I just really applaud your courage and your willingness to step up on behalf of other people who usually don't have a voice, or they don't know how to have a voice. Well, it's such a hard struggle, right? I mean, people have asked me, you know, do I want to bring that family that has a child with special needs, as it's usually deemed, and ask them to help be a champion of the things I'm doing? And I really do. Sometimes I don't want to be the only voice, but their life is so hard every day. You know, it's fraught and fought in the spaces of insurance and bills and IEPs and can I get the care I need to survive, and just endless needs that the last thing I can do is fight for myself for daily thrivership. Because they really are often just stuck in surviving. I mean, that's where I was when I was sick and diagnosed. That's all I could do is be sick, get my chemotherapy, and try to rebound to get the next set of chemotherapy. Anything beyond that was forget about it. I was wiped. But it's that other side of it where people need that lift. And I'm just so honored that God chose me to be that lift. Well, I think God calls, and there's certain people that listen and act. Yeah. And you're one of those people. We talked about this, about leadership, and I don't deem myself a leader. I'm more of the doer. I just go. I just move forward, because I knew that when I was sick, without moving forward, you're dead. You have to keep moving forward. Don't get me wrong. There were times I was like, I'll come back for my chemo tomorrow because I'm not ready today. And I would get psychologically prepared as a teenager to go, all right, you're going to feel terrible again. You're going to get hit by a bus. You're going to be throwing up like crazy. It's just going to be miserable, right? And I would have to psych myself up for that to be prepared for it. So I certainly took my pauses, but I always dove right back in, because life was, at that point, I learned it is do or don't. Don't take the chemo and you die. Do, you have a chance at survivorship. But as you're talking here about leadership, you know, one of the things that hit me is sometimes leadership is a ripple. It's not active. And what I mean by that is, if you can believe it, my wife actually has worked with the doctors who have saved my life and my surgeon. She actually is in the bone marrow transplant clinic at Children's and has been all over the HEMOC and oncology floor and units since she's been there. Well, she was in a care conference talking about solid tumor patients with my surgeon.
And this is 17 years after I'm surviving. And as they're talking about a patient, he turns to my wife and whispers in her ear, "Your husband is the reason we try so hard." So at a time 17 years earlier, 18 years earlier, when they didn't think I would see 15 or 16, he's held on to that as that patient that shows what is or could be possible. It may be unlikely, but if it's 1%, it's 1%. If it's 0.1%, it's 0.1%. If that's all you have to chase, you got to chase that with everything you got. And it was more leading by example, by experience than it was intentional.
Yeah, and I think that's a key part of leadership. Let me highlight something and amplify something that was just said that needs to be amplified. You either do or you don't. Period.
Full stop.
Full stop. So, when did you first realize you were a leader?
Again, it's an interesting dynamic. I've never seen myself as a leader. And when I actually just had, as we were speaking earlier, a cultivation event last night, that doctor that saved my life was sitting on my left at that table, a 35-year survivor at this point.
Let's celebrate that. Let's celebrate that. Cheers to that.
Cheers to that, indeed.
Amen.
So Dr. Margolis, my guy, has become the chief pediatrician at Children's Wisconsin at this point. No longer, taking care of patients every day. He's at the top of the game. And I looked at him and I said, "Well, this is totally your personality. This is exactly what you wanted." He goes, "Not really, Damian." He said, "I didn't chase leadership."
Yeah, it chose you.
That's right. He actually kind of said, he goes, and I was like, "Well, what do you mean?" And he goes, "Well, there's people out there that will read about being a leader, and that's their goal, to become a leader." And I kind of picture it as like your politician. Your politician is either in the game to do what they're actually supposed to do, which is serve the people, or they're in the game for the next level of politics, right? I'm going to be a city council member, and then I'm going to become the mayor, and then I'm going to be, the county executive, and hopefully governor, and maybe I'll get to president, senator. Like, it's always a climb of a goal, not I'm going to serve the people. And that's really, you just kind of, I think, mentioned earlier about I think good leaders lead quietly. Good leaders lead by example. Good leaders lead from behind and not necessarily always in front. And I would assume that when I think about Dr. Margolis, that's what he did. He just did his job, and he did his job extraordinarily well with all of his patients, and was always there for them and always thinking outside of the box and not just saying, this is the protocol, this is the how. At a time when people weren't looking at the human, he was looking at the human. And now he's there. And he said, what I love more than anything is getting the wins, recruiting the really good doctors to our hospital to take care of the patients that I'm not maybe no longer taking care of. So, I think when I look at what we've done, what you could say I've led, that's largely been my way and my path forward as well.
And by the way, that's the only mention of politics we will have on this show. But it was a very good example. I mean, it's a really good example that it's very clear.
Right.
So I appreciate that. So I appreciate your humility about leadership. I think the best leaders are humble about it. They're not really seeking it. They end up there.
Yeah, somebody looked at me once and said, "You are too freaking humble. You got to stop."
Yeah, well, I don't think you can ever be that way.
Right, I agree, which is why I haven't changed.
Yeah, but you are a leader. That is a fact. But what do you enjoy most about it?
I think what I enjoy most is really empowering people's lives. So if I think back to my first goal actually for leadership, it was Camp One Step. It was, I wanted to be a program director, not just a counselor. And then I wanted to be the winter camp director. And I wanted to improve things all the time. And whether that was more than anything, it was always improve it for the mission. So at Camp One Step, it's about giving kids with cancer the opportunity to just be kids again, just be normal. Well, I'd experienced that too, like they are experiencing it. And so I knew that there were ways I could make this better. I knew that I could see them and what the experience they have, not from the bedside, but from having been in the bed. And I had been a camper. And so that opportunity to make their experience better has always been my goal. And then I started running a volleyball facility. I went from an official, and I looked at that and I was like, God, this thing could be run so much better. And volleyball was my first love. So I end up going from official referee up on the stand to assistant volleyball director to volleyball director to the manager of the entire facility, because I saw in people what I wanted and would have wanted if I had the experience to be able to still play volleyball. And I just led with that, really that heart space. I think at the end of the day, when I'm talking about all this and what I'm realizing is I've always led from the heart.
Yeah, that's clear. I mean, we've kind of been simpatico from day one.
Yeah.
One reason is that we're pretty intense.
Yeah, I think I found my first soul brother.
Yeah, some people would say we're obsessed, and that sometimes can be a very negative thing to many. But I think if you really are trying to achieve something worthwhile, there is no option. Obsession is required.
That's right.
But with that comes challenges. So what would you say your biggest challenge as a leader is?
It is very clear to me that my challenge is actually leading staff.
Yeah.
That has been my greatest challenge.
And why?
I think it's part of what you just said, right? It's the absolute intensity.
Your fire burns
real bright, real loud.
And
I've learned I'm a love or hate. You can either handle and understand this passion or you're very afraid of it.
Yeah, it burns
and
hot.
You want to push me away because you just can't handle it.
I get it.
So it's like the difference of the dog, I guess, who just wants to sleep on the bed and the one that wants to jump all over you. Like, what kind of personality do you appreciate? So I think that's one of the issues. You know, I really struggle to look at people in any space and understand why you're not working as hard as you possibly can, or that I know you can. And that doesn't necessarily have to be like some corporate America will be like burn the midnight oil.
Yeah.
You can work real hard and real successfully in 4 hours.
Yeah.
But it's a struggle for me to know how to get people there. It's a struggle for me to understand and see people that I don't can even behave in a way that isn't constantly like, go get it. You're alive. You're here.
Well, your perspective, you have to admit, is a little different.
It is.
I mean, I've had some instances in my life that have made my perspective very different as well. It's a shame that it takes some tragedy and some suffering to get there.
Mm-hmm.
But what I have learned very humbly is that there's a difference between a leader and a manager.
Mm-hmm.
And sure many people would agree that are listening in that I'm a terrible manager. I mean, I'm not a good manager. I'm a decent leader. I think I can motivate people. I can keep people inspired. And I think the key to that is to understand that.
Right.
And to make sure that you're in a leadership position, not a management position. And I don't know where you are in that journey, but I will tell you that as I've been blessed with the opportunity to become just more of a leader and less of a manager, I think everyone has benefited.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
mission,
spot on. It's exactly where I need to go and want to go. That's our goal is I am more of that leader in that mentality than I am that manager. Very much like when I coach my kids, I always say, I'm not your X's and O's guy. I'm your motivator, your inspiration, and your hammer if you need one every once in a while. I like to be the assistant coach because I got the big voice and I got the positive and I got, the inspiration and the motivation. I've got all those pieces in spades, but I don't necessarily always have the X's and O's. But it's interesting. You can always see your path forward and know what you got to do. I mean, my board at the Ability Center is constantly like, you've got to get the stuff out of your mind and put it on paper so everybody can see it. And I'm just in that constant go-do mode that I don't have time to put it down on paper.
Yeah.
I'm getting there. I know I need to get there, but it's more like, why don't you just spend time with me and just absorb it?
Yeah. Well, if you'll allow me, I'll be your accountability partner.
I love that.
Because including you, everybody will have a lot more joy.
Yeah.
And you'll actually achieve your mission a lot better and more effectively and more sustainably over time. So then who would be some leaders you look up to and why? Would you say your mom? I mean, it seems like your mom has been a big part of your life.
I think the people that I look to are people of strength, people who have overcome odds, the unexpected. Those are the people that also inspire me. And you're right. You hit it on the head. I have lived an extraordinary life at an extraordinary time of your life, your character, your personality being molded. That I think I see things differently. And we can even go back to your comment to do or don't that I said earlier. I've always talked about, I also don't believe there's gray, right? There's no gray in the world. To me, it is this or that, light or dark, right? Do or don't.
Yep.
The gray is the space that's in your mind. And you're just trying to navigate which direction you got to go. At some point, you got to pick a direction and accept the direction you've gone.
Yeah.
So, my mom definitely has taught me a lot in the space of perseverance. And that's probably, I often have a thing I call the 4 Ps, and perseverance is one of them. These are things, I think it's possibility, positivity, passion, and perseverance. To me, these are people's currencies that you have in spades if you choose. The only people that can take them away from you are others. It's up to you how much of those 4 Ps you're going to bring on the daily.
Yeah.
And so those are the people that inspire me and move me and that I look to.
Yeah.
More
Can
than
you name
anything.
a couple? And
Yeah. We talked a little bit about how I'm not a big reader, but I am a big listener and I'm
no
a big
judgment.
watcher.
I still love
yeah,
you.
no, I appreciate that. So, recently I've been listening to David Goggins' book, Can't Hurt Me.
Yeah.
One of the book that I read a bit, love him or hate him, he is another strong personality, is Lance Armstrong's story. Yeah. But I saw it from a space of this guy, again, also survived the unsurvivable and then conquered the world in some way. And it takes a personality like his or David Goggins to get to those points. I love Richard Branson and just the thought of, very much like me, I didn't like education. I didn't like school. I didn't do it well. And he drops out at 16 and creates just this huge mega business, all starting with a little paper and knowing that he's worth more than what everybody else sees. He can see his path forward when no one else can. That's largely the space I've been living in.
Yeah.
When no one could see a path forward for me since a teenager, I always did.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, I struggle with the gray. And I had a mentor of mine with the Golf Digest schools who one day, I think we were working on my golf swing actually. And so we were working on something. I hit a couple balls and I said, man, I'm trying.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, look, put the club on the ground. So I did, and I had no idea where he was going with this. And I said, and then he says, well, now try to pick it up. So I went down to go pick it up, and he goes, no, try to pick it up. I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, Brian, you either do it or you don't. There is no trying.
Mm-hmm.
And
the Master Yoda.
yeah. And that was a seminal moment for me, and it probably just added fuel to my fire on my whole black and white thing. It is, you either do it or you don't.
That's right.
So
you either improve your swing and hit it 300 yards or 400 yards, or
yep,
you don't.
Or you don't.
You either fix it or you don't. And to me, I think the difference where people struggle is accepting the decision they've made and being okay with that.
Yeah.
Right. If you do or you don't, and you either accept the rewards or the consequences of those choices, and just be okay with it.
Yep.
And move forward.
Yep. Well, on my brother's deathbed, he looked at all of us and he said, if you need to choose, this is literally seconds before eternity.
Mm-hmm.
He looks at all of us after 8 years of suffering and he says, if you need to choose between happy and sad, choose happy.
Mm-hmm.
Which was unbelievable.
Yep.
And I've vowed to share that with everybody. And what it really says to me is life is but a series of choices.
That's right.
And you choose, whether it's you're having a bad day, how do you choose to handle it? Because we still can always choose to take a step forward and turn towards something better, even in our worst days. As a leader, how would you say that the way you look at your bottom line has changed over time? Or maybe it hasn't.
Give me a definition in your estimation of what the bottom line.
Well, why don't you define?
Is
you define it. How would you define a bottom line?
When
a business is really easy, right? It's
right.
Profitability.
That's right.
But I really admire the folks who it's just not profitability at all cost. It's that profitability also includes the way that we got there.
Mm-hmm.
How much collateral damage was there to get to that bottom line or that level of bottom line that you wanted to achieve? And the people I admire the most are the ones that get there with the least amount of collateral damage, that they actually brought people up while achieving the bottom line. So there is no wrong or right answer. how would you define bottom line?
I mean, when I hear something like the word bottom line, I think, somebody or something hitting rock bottom. And that's all I can really find inside of my head. And when I think about that, I refuse to ever be there, right? I refuse to accept. I think you said it earlier, and people have said it to me over the decades. Like, you had every right to just kind of hide. You had every right to kind of quit, give up. Your dreams were shattered in a moment. And I have found myself at times in those spaces where I was hiding, but I didn't choose to stay in the bubble. I didn't choose to stay in the tube. I didn't choose to stay in the darkness. I chose to pick myself up from the bottom and continue to move forward. So it's probably completely off base when we talk about business or otherwise, but it's also that, a thing I've always said is failure is not an option.
Yeah.
For me, it's always been failure is not an option. So I know that bottom line in this tense means something different. For me, it's I don't ever want to see that bottom.
Yeah.
That bottom that I grew up with was death.
Yeah.
Like, that's what I was staring at in my teenage years.
Yeah. Well, I think it's an appropriate time to ask this related. One thing I've learned is that people are motivated by one of two things: fear of loss or hope of gain. Where would you say you mostly play from in life?
Oh, in the positive side, hope of gain, hands down. Because that's my experience, right?
Yeah.
Do or don't. Do take chemo, potentially survive. Don't take chemo, death.
So you'd say that you're more motivated by winning than you are by losing.
Hands down.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that could even go back to Dr. Margolis's comment last night, right? He likes the win. He likes to bring in that doctor that people didn't think he could get. He likes that part of the leadership, right? Mm-hmm. He was very much where we were just talking too of like, the managing of the people and the problems I don't so much like, but those wins, he's always chasing that win.
Yep.
And I would say that's definitely where I'm at. I mean, life is hard for everybody, for certain. That's our life and human experience, I think, is second to none. I often say, as I'm looking at a picture of an eagle, God, like, how great would it be to just be a bird and fly away? How great would it be to I just have to get food and shelter? We have so much more in the human experience, and the life span is shorter. Like, we're pushing for 70, 80, 90 years of hard.
So let me stop you for a minute. Do you think the eagle ever feels sorry for himself or herself?
Ooh, that just got deep. No. I think...
And why do you think that? So that separates us from every other animal.
Right.
I think part of it is, some people might disagree, but maybe it's the soul factor.
Mm-hmm.
But if
I think the animal doesn't live in the gray, right? The animal is always in do or don't and survival mode. I've got to get food. I've got to get shelter. I've got to make my way through life today of something that might be chasing me. Mm-hmm. I've got to procreate. Like, it's all pretty simple. It's not getting stuck in keeping up with the Joneses, if you will, that we all want to do. I need the bigger house. I need the better car, which means I need to make more money. I want the better food. I want the entertainment. I want the games. I want the, it's everything that we think we need. That we're constantly chasing and just making our own lives harder by our own choices of what's around us. Yeah, the eagle thinks, as I look at this picture, I need to catch that fish in the water. That's it.
Yeah. Let's circle back to choice.
Mm-hmm.
It's our choice that we live that way too.
That's right.
And it's our choice that we don't necessarily have to live that way.
100%.
That's a topic for another day. So we're gonna transition here in a minute. But I'm gonna ask you one more question about leadership. What advice would you give to a young leader today?
The advice I would give anybody, especially a leader, is to believe in yourself. No doubt you see the path forward, and usually leaders are given some kind of vision. And you can never, I would be surprised if anyone, that it's not just me, could articulate the vision of what they see forward from A to Z to anyone. And so you've got to trust your path. And I can go back to when I dropped out of college. My sister is a genius, and there's my mom and my sister both being like, well, if you don't go to college, you're going to be a garbage man. You're not going to do anything. And I remember looking at them and being like, I'm going to do something. I'm going to be something. Right now, I just need a break. I mean, I had spent the last 5 years surviving through chemo, surgeries, et cetera, like not being a kid. I just needed a break, right? But I knew I could see a path forward for me. I knew where I wanted to go. I knew I wanted to do and be something. I knew I had a life to honor and to give back to, but I needed a pause for the moment. I think that that's, to me, when we say, you know, what is the advice to a leader? It is to believe in yourself and to pivot when you need to, not because someone else told you you had to.
Yeah, and I think that does not, two things don't have to be mutually exclusive. It doesn't mean you don't take advice and have mentorship. And,
That's right.
And take other people's feedback and insight. But I will say that if you're going to rise up and put your head above the crowd, there are going to be people that are going to doubt you.
Oh yeah.
And I've spoken to this a lot with my children, that, you know, if you want to achieve something in life, that you're going to have to grow the ability to ignore noise. Mm-hmm. And that noise is going to come in many ways, and one of ways is doubt. I think belief and confidence are two different things. You always have to maintain the belief. I think you can be overconfident, but I think that's where taking advice and mentorship from other people is really important. Mm-hmm. And I know it's been an important part of my growth and continued growth, and yours as well.
It's that saying that seems so simple. Haters are going to hate. That, I mean, if you actually just philosophically think about that, like, and it's, again, sounds really simple. A mentor of mine actually said to me too, stopping is what stops you.
Yep.
And if you just pause and think about that statement, that in both of those in the moment just kind of sound ridiculous and obvious.
Yep.
But if you reflect on it, you start to realize that generally those haters are the individuals who didn't believe in themselves and didn't get to where they want to go, or listen to the noise that you just talked about, all the people telling them what they can or can't do, or what they're going to be capable of or not capable of.
Yep.
And so the haters are going to take, and again, stopping is what stops you. At any moment, I could choose to stop the mission, but that's just up to me.
Yep.
People are going to be in the way. There are going to be mountains to climb. There are going to be walls to run through. If I let one of those walls stop me, that was my choice.
So stopping is what stops you. How would you define purpose?
Oh, Brian, you just went real deep right there.
Well, you didn't think this was going to be superficial, did you?
No, but I mean, I feel like I've spent so long talking about what I believe my purpose to be. I guess I would have to say, if I correlate it to myself, the purpose is the fire in your belly that you refuse to let go, regardless of the outside world. This conversation we just had about the haters, right, and the noise. Sometimes I like to call it, you know, it's your God voice. I mean, if something hit your gut,
yep.
It's your purpose. And the thing is that usually it sounds crazy and impossible.
Yep.
But the key is trust.
Yep.
When no one else trusts, do you trust that all things are possible?
No, I think that's good. So we've talked a lot about, I guess, our work, but I think in both of our cases, our work and our life and personal and professional are pretty commingled. They're kind of marbleized into our life. There is no work and then there's personal. It's all part of the same. But I do want to ask, how do you think purpose shows up in your leadership style at home?
Yeah. You know what just came to my head, though? I got to say this. I think purpose is the path that no one else sees. That's your purpose. No one else can see that path. Then that is your purpose and what you're here for. The way it shows up and has been showing up in my house is, you know, the goal of the Ability Center at the end of the day is just inclusion for all. It's inclusion for everybody, everywhere. You know, all abilities, all ages, all the time, everywhere. That's our goal. And so I've taken my kids. I was the stay-at-home dad. All three of my boys are adopted. We got our first son was actually born on the day I was diagnosed 21 years later, which is a miracle and crazy in and of itself. And from my treatment, it's the reason we can't have kids of our own. So I was the stay-at-home dad while starting this organization and uplifting the organization. So my kids have always come to all the meetings, right?
I love that.
They were in tow with me in the coffee shops, in the lunches, which, you know, in our sector, in the nonprofit sector, a lot of women exist in our space. So it was always a good icebreaker. You know, can I hold your baby? Yeah, absolutely. You can hold my baby.
Brilliant, Damian.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
It went really well all the time. But my boys were always around. They've always been a part of the purpose. They've always experienced inclusion and they know nothing different. And what's amazing to see is that my youngest is actually, and I don't think this is just him living with dad. He is the most inclusive human I've ever seen in my life. He can and has always been able to talk to anybody, any age, anywhere, anytime. We used to call him the mayor because he just everywhere. He is such a bright light.
Yeah. What are your kids' names?
So my youngest is Lennon. He is now 10. Our middle guy is Harry. He is 12. And my oldest is Jack, and he is 14.
Nice. So if they were sitting here right now, how would they describe you?
Ooh. Well, you know, that's pretty close to a bunch of teenagers, so they don't really like me that much right now, probably.
That's not your job.
No, I know it's not my job. I think they would describe their dad as a guy who's extraordinarily kind and extraordinarily strong. It has been quite a thing for them to witness since they were little, all the number of knee replacements I've gone through. I mean, to this point, I've had 44 surgeries and 36 knee replacements and revisions.
You hear that?
So since 2012, when my youngest was born, they've seen a lot of that. And it's amazing to watch them come with just the inherent compassion that a human has. The safety they put around me in the bubble, I could cry unknowingly, was like amazing. You know, because I'm a jungle gym. We're dads, right? Dads are usually jungle gyms. And they just knew I couldn't be the jungle gym right now, but just sat next to me quietly and close to me, which has been pretty amazing to witness, and always wanted to come to the hospital and see me, regardless of whether or not they felt scared. They always wanted to visit dad in the hospital when I had surgery too. So they, in a short amount of time, have themselves seen a lot, overcome a lot, accomplished a lot.
Yeah. And so what's your wife's name?
My wife, mom is Bo. And
Bo?
Bo. And it's her fault that we have 3 boys because she always told the universe, I think I meant to raise a family of boys. And I joke with her now. I say, yeah,
That's
raise
bold.
a family of boys, you said, right? It'll be fun, you said. And that's exactly what she got. She got a family of boys since before we met. I mean, when we first met, that's what she said. I think I meant to raise a family of boys. And here we adopted all our children. It wouldn't matter either way, but they're all boys.
And what do you admire most about Bo?
Well, probably that she puts up with me.
I understand that.
I admire her silent perseverance. I would say we've been through some tough times. She took on a husband. She, again, if we remember back to earlier here, she's in childhood cancer. She is an oncology-based nurse. She sees who survives, who doesn't, what it takes, et cetera. So coming into our relationship, she knew what she was really coming up against and taking on. This is a guy who could be a bilateral above knee amputee. This is a guy that's going to need more surgeries. God forbid he gets diagnosed again, because to some childhood cancer survivors, for the kind of treatment they have, it's kind of an automatic at some point. You're just kind of waiting for that to happen. So she took on a lot, and she's been an incredibly just in the background, silent, full of just silent perseverance.
Love it. What are you currently working on to be a better purpose-driven leader?
I think consistently showing up regardless of how difficult it is. That perseverance piece is what I've been hearing over the last 2 decades, that your story hasn't changed, the need hasn't changed, and you're actually accomplishing the things you said you would do. So I think that idea of failure is not an option, and I'm not just going to say things, I'm going to do things. I think it goes back to what we talked about a little bit earlier, that ripple effect that happens as a leader by just the action, the doing, the not just saying.
So just being more and more of that.
Yeah, more and more of that. I mean, we are accomplishing the country's first universal park right now.
Which is amazing. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that means?
I can. So we often build inclusive playgrounds in parks, and that's the important piece, is that just about every playground is in a park. And we're very proud of ourselves that we've done that for people with disabilities. But in our case, that playground sits in an 18-acre park. And what we're saying with universal parks is that everybody deserves to go beyond the playground. So while we can be proud of ourselves and that's a good accomplishment, and you're making an attempt towards inclusion, you don't really create inclusion when everybody can't leave the playground. you create exclusion. And so we're saying the entire park should be universally inclusive. So again, all abilities, all ages, all the time. So if a dad wants to play with their kids, or a grandparent wants to play with their grandchildren, or a disabled sibling wants to play with their able-bodied sibling. And then even more importantly, the able-bodied sibling doesn't have to feel like the caretaker, or the able-bodied peers and friends don't have to feel like caretakers and stay behind for their friend who can't come with them if they leave the playground. This way, they can all continue to just be normal children and move as they so desire and wish.
So you spoke to me a little bit about, some of the initiatives in the future you're really working on that would be game changers with Special Olympics in different cities. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so the goal with that, and it goes back to your question earlier about, what am I doing, to kind of show up in that leadership space and improve in that leadership space? Well, it's building a $22 million project that nobody thought was possible. It starts right there, right? It starts with saying, we need the first wheelchair slide. It's coming to a park near you. We need the first universal park, the first therapy pocket, the first universal field, the first therapy pocket. These are all coming to a park near you. So what we mean by that is working with our partners at Game Time, who already have 1 in 5 playgrounds across the country are from Game Time. They're almost 100 years old. They want to see universal parks around the country just like we do. They want to get where I'm at, mentally, which is we shouldn't celebrate building inclusive playgrounds because they just should be inclusive. It shouldn't be a thing anymore that we're excited that we're building an inclusive playground. It should just be automatic. So we are looking to expand universal parks around the country. And right now our hope is that, and a goal is working with the LA 28 Olympics and Paralympics and potentially having that be the first next universal park and really exploded in a big way to show people what that real inclusion really looks like and the joy you can bring to life when no one's excluded.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I'll be praying for you on that.
Thank you.
If you're interested in learning more about that, reach out. Where do people reach out to find you?
Yeah, you can either go to TACWI, so that's the Ability Center Wisconsin.org, or universalpark.org and find those projects that we're working on presently.
Awesome. I love it. So what purpose-driven leaders, dead or alive, would you love to have a cup of coffee with?
And the only person that's coming in my mind, and I'm going to say it because no one else is coming in, is Barack Obama. Not to be political, but...
And why?
Again, incredible perseverance, accomplishing something that no one thought you could accomplish, right? Being the first African-American president. He seems to be somebody who also is incredibly genuine, and story doesn't really change much, and clearly driven. Not necessarily about politics, but it's always been kind of who doesn't want to be a fly on the wall in the White House and maybe know a little bit of something of that's what's real.
Yeah.
What's actual.
Well, Mr. Obama, if you're listening, this could be an incredible way to continue your legacy.
You could do a universal park in Chicago.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's what I'm talking about. Maybe at the library there.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's get that done. What do you think if you were to spend time with Barack, or let's call him Mr. President?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think if you just really sat down and got to know him? What do you think might surprise you?
Oh boy, we've talked a bit about humility. He seems to have a lot of humility to me, but you can't achieve the level he's achieved without some extraordinary confidence and belief. So to really understand his character that is outside of the television, if you will, outside of the media, it would be interesting to know is he who he is in front, also behind the curtain a little bit.
Yeah. So as you look at the human race, I often think about, is anybody thinking about where we're trying to go?
Mm-hmm.
What do we want this to look like 100 years from now, 300 years from now, 500 years from now? What do you think the bottom line for the human race should be?
There was a question you had sent me where I was thinking about this. And I think when I think about that space of disability, I think the way we succeed is just people talk about a lot, but like leave the labels behind. Well, when are we just going to see the human, and the human existence? And why does it have to be, you alluded to this a little bit earlier, why does everything have to be steeped in tragedy? So I was actually on Oprah's Life Class show when she returned to television.
I've heard of her.
Yeah, have you heard of her? I was a guest, like in the audience and on a field trip with her to the Museum of Science and Industry. I wasn't actually sitting on stage with her. But I did, when she made some kind of comment, I did in the audience ask her, when do you think we can seek this level of human existence without tragedy? And she kind of threw her arms back and is like, I love this question, right? Why do we always have to hit adversity to see the person in front of us?
Yeah.
You know, so when you ask that question of, do I think anybody is thinking 100, 200, 300 years from now? Sadly, I don't.
Agreed.
I don't believe that that's happening anymore. And we're just living in the moment, day to day, trying to keep up with the Joneses, really, versus seeing, again, the human in front of us.
Yeah.
You know, when I see an individual with Down syndrome, I don't think about Down syndrome. I think about love.
Yep.
I mean, it's like this extra chromosome is a love chromosome because so many, I remember being at Children's Hospital and I'm there to get an x-ray and a 12-year-old comes in who had Down syndrome and his mom goes, oh, I'm sorry. He has no idea his strength because he gave me a huge hug. And I looked at her, I said, don't ever apologize for your son. Don't ever apologize. Like, who doesn't need an extra hug? Yeah. Who doesn't need an extra shining light of brightness in front of them every day? And so it's that. And that's the beauty, Brian, of for me, of Universal Park, is that we're creating a space where humans will just be able to be seen. You're all just playing. You're all just in a park, but it's not disability hour versus able hour or an inclusive or disabled park versus an able-bodied park. It's a universal park because we all live together in community in a universe. And when you can bring them together in one space and just break down barriers through the same things we all do, you start to see the human, you start to see the ability, you start to see the possibility, as opposed to seeing the can versus can't. Because that's how we see largely people with disabilities, what they can't do. We're not focused on the positive side of what they can do. Yep. So to organically bring a community together like that, that's going to be the beauty of Universal Parks at the end of the day. It's not just about providing an opportunity to kids or people with disabilities. It's about bringing community together where everybody can do everything.
I love it. And, you know, when you think about 100 years, 300 years, 500 years, the fact that we don't hear any leaders talking about that is tragic in itself because, as my father used to say, if you continue to aim at nothing, you'll hit nothing.
That's right.
And that's kind of what we're doing because I'm kind of wondering where are we on a race to?
Right.
So, you know, we talked about coming into this show that, you know, you're not a big reader and we love you still.
Thank you.
You are a learner. And we have established that and we all learn in different ways. But we have also talked about a book that you might be working on. I would expect that you would think that other people will read your book, though.
I would hope so. Yes, I would hope so.
All right. So if
only
you were
to
to write
inspire
this book,
and motivate.
Okay. Well, that's a good reason. We'll work on that.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll read to you. And then we'll do
a nice bedtime story.
Yeah, for sure.
I love this.
So
this is a growing bromance.
Yes,
is what's happening over here.
This book, if you were to have a title, what would it be?
Again, not an expert in this space. And the way we started this conversation and sharing this idea with the book for you was me loading my story into the AI world. Sorry. To just give me an idea, not to write a book. I know that it can't write a book and it can't tell the story.
It's just my bias with it.
I understand. It's not that I don't have that same bias, but it was, you know, Brian, at the end of the day, it was that God voice that I talked about earlier. It was the number of people that were standing in front of me over the last few months that were somehow in some way it came up about writing a book, or have you written a book, or did you ever think about writing a book, or somebody actually calling me and saying, I want to work with you to write a book. And I've always known I need to get my story out further and wider. And it was never the right time. And right now I'm just doing my best not to ignore what God keeps throwing at me, you know, and not run away from it in fear.
Yeah.
And so
I'm not going to let you run away from this question.
I know the title, you know, I think, what did it come up with?
Forget it.
Yeah. Something.
How about you?
I kind of like the idea from pain to purpose. Yeah, by all means, please do.
You do or you don't.
Yeah.
Full stop. There's an option.
That is an option.
Well, we can keep wordsmithing that.
We'll have to ask the audience to send us a message or something.
Yes, that's a great idea.
And
we
say,
should ask
what do
the
you
audience,
think about this title?
The audience for sure.
You do or you don't.
For sure. Now that's leadership, not management.
That's right.
That's empowering others to speak into the mission.
Yeah.
Love it. So I'm going to ask you one last question. When it's all said and done, how would you define your life's bottom line?
Oh boy, how would I define my life's bottom line? I think it has to go back to the title you just said. My life's bottom line is very simple. It's do or don't. Full stop. I either do it or I don't do it.
Well, you heard it here. You either do or you don't. This time with you has been precious. I learn every time I'm with you, and I know the audience will too. And I'll tell you that we at BUKU Branded, my family, my friends are behind you, and we'll do whatever we can to help support you and promote what you're doing.
I not only appreciate that, I feel that.
Yeah, good.
I have felt that since the day we met at the Bucks game in the suite.
That's right. Well, amen.
Amen indeed.
All right.